Yes, thanks for having me. It is a policy that has been put in place since the administration came in, designating the cartels, warning them about mass migration, emptying their prisons to send their worst to the United States under the Biden administration. This policy has been in place, and Maduro has known about this threat. Maduro, a week ago, was pleading with the US president to make some sort of a deal. This is a strong message for any other drug cartel country in Latin America and South America that the U.S. is very serious about this issue. Yeah, so this is what's concerning, right? Saying using this kind of language that the U.S. will stay there and ensure that the right government comes into place sounds a lot like Iraq back in the after the 2003 invasion. But there's a difference here. There's no sectarian conflict inside of Venezuela. The people had an election, they voted for somebody other than Maduro. Maduro stole the election. So in this case, the US I wouldn't say the US has allies in Venezuela. The Venezuelan people have an ally in the United States. So it won't be much that the US has to do. It simply has to identify the strong, charismatic leaders in Venezuela and let them form the new government that is pro democracy, pro US, and anti cartel. When it comes to U.S. boots on the ground, I think the boots on the ground will be the Venezuelan people. If you look at the videos, the protesters inside of Venezuela look a lot like the protesters inside of Iran. They want change. They want the regime to collapse. So this is organic in a lot of ways. What was ready to happen, it just needed the U.S. to help it. The people that were guarding Maduro weren't concerned about protecting him. They didn't fight. They laid down their arms and they let the U.S. Special Forces go in after Maduro, and they were able to capture him alive along with his wife. So there's not popular support for Maduro inside of Venezuela. It's the exact opposite. I think every enemy of the United States right now is wondering, will this happen to us? What we're seeing is Russian air defense systems, Chinese air defense systems cannot protect Iran from a U.S. Strategic strike on its nuclear facilities. We saw that. Russian air defense systems and Chinese air defense systems cannot protect Iran from Israeli strikes. And again, Russian air defense systems failed last night in Venezuela. The message to others like Maduro is that if you are a designated terrorist or you are a state sponsor of terror, this could be your future. This could be what your future looks like. So this gives the president strength. He has 3 more years in office to send warnings, to help other countries make the right adjustments so that this doesn't happen to their leaders. Now, the bad thing about this is, what if Putin tries to do this to somebody? What if China tries to do this to someone? What if Benjamin Netanyahu is detained internationally somewhere, citing what President Trump did to Maduro? That's a concern. When the US does something, it needs to be beyond reproach, meaning it shouldn't be questioned legally. Legally, this was a legal strike and operation, but our adversaries don't believe that. Everyone has condemned this, to include Erdogan in Turkey, to include the Emir in Qatar, to include our traditional adversaries, and even Western allies like the UK and France. So we need to look at this. What are the ramifications of this operation? What do our adversaries do with this? We're seeing a lot of statements coming from people that shouldn't be saying what they're saying right now about this operation. Well, the way I look at it, this is a illegal action by the United States. So what happens when Maduro falls? Erdogan loses an ally. Qatar loses an ally. Iran loses an ally. Hezbollah loses an ally. Hamas loses an ally. So this is key. And the U.S., what does the U.S. gain? The U.S. gains dominance over the Western Hemisphere's oil production, gas production, that will give it leverage when it comes to dealing with Iran, Qatar, the Middle East. So this is good for the United States. This is good for the Western Hemisphere. It is bad for the Middle East when it comes to Iran, Qatar, and some other OPEC nations. But you have to look at those countries. If one country's leader falls, where would it benefit the United States? And those are the leaders that I would be watching. If the Supreme leader in Iran falls. Is that good for the United States? Yes. Is that good for the region? Yes. So those are the types of countries that need to be on alert. The countries that, if their leaders fall, would benefit the U.S. both strategically from a national security perspective and also from a oil and gas perspective. We have to be honest about the brutal truth here. There's an economic advantage to having Maduro no longer control Venezuela, and there's a national security advantage of having Maduro no longer control Venezuela. Well, he's talking about all of the people that came into the country under Biden. We have a lot of Venezuelan gang members, people that were in prisons. Maduro emptied out his prisons, his insane asylums, and sent those people to the United States to cause havoc. And what they've done is they've actually punished the American people with their criminal actions. So that's what the president's talking about. And under a Kamala presidency, I mean, who knows? The Kamala presidency would be a friend to Tehran, an enemy of Israel, a friend to China. We're both still steadfast enemies, or not enemies, but geopolitical, uh, what do you call it, competitors with Russia. I mean, the Russia situation may not have changed at all, but that's what the president's talking about. Open borders, drugs, fentanyl coming into our country, cocaine coming into our country, all from Central and South America. And a lot of the money that is raised in the drug production and selling these drugs goes to Hezbollah, goes to Hamas, goes to Erdogan through gold and oil exchanges with Venezuela. There's a lot here that happens. So when the president says that, he's saying it would be far worse. Maduro would be in a stronger position if he didn't win the administration. Iran would be in a stronger position if he didn't win the election, is what I meant to say. No, I think the president wants balance. In the case of balancing the rest of the world, this is a success. You take Maduro out of Venezuela, it impacts a lot of our adversaries. It impacts Russian oil and gas sales. It impacts China. It impacts Iran. It impacts terrorist networks. So this is a good thing. And it's part of a message to other leaders. The United States isn't going to occupy Venezuela for 2 years, 3 years. The people are already there. They're ready to go in. The U.S. will simply be there as an ally. The Venezuelan people will be asking the U.S. for help. It will not be a U.S. Position like it was in Iraq, where we land on the ground and make mistakes like we did by backing Iran's Badr Corps and Jaish al-Mahdi and have them take, basically letting them run Iraq, which led to Iranian control of Iraq through its militias. That's not going to happen here.